All right. Well, hello everyone. My name is Mattea Goetz. I am the Grand Canyon Program Manager for the Sierra Club, which basically means that I manage the Sierra Club's work in the Greater Grand Canyon region in northern Arizona. And I'm really excited to be with y'all today. And I'll be chatting today about the threats and opportunities in the Grand Canyon region. And the Sierra Club works within what is called like public lands. And so a lot of what I'll be talking about today is in relation to public lands. However, I just want to do a little caveat to the presentation that all public lands are native lands. There are no untouched places within the so-called United States that do not have kinship and ancestral ties with tribal nations, or most likely many nations. And at the Sierra Club, and personally, we stand behind Indigenous peoples as being the best people to navigate what the human relationship to a landscape in their homeland should be, and we will continue to work towards tribal leadership in quote unquote land management, if not ideally land back. All right, so we're just going to jump right into things since I don't have a lot of time and this is a really big topic. And unfortunately, we live in a region that has a lot of threats from a lot of different places, whether it's old growth logging or mining or not allowing for wolves to come back into the region, etc. Picking, like, minimizing it down to just a few things for today's chat was hard, but I just have two major threats that I'm going to chat about with us today that I find very pressing. The first is the stripping of protections for public lands. Up in this corner, we have, if you're not familiar, we have a new president. This is Donald Trump, and I put him there because he was in charge of putting new people into office. And I have this arrow pointing towards this new face, and this is Doug Burgum. Doug Burgum is our new Secretary of Interior, and if you're not familiar with what the Secretary of Interior does, they oversee federal land management, natural resources, and environmental protection in the United States. And they also do other things, but for today's purpose, that's going to be really important to know. And we're really concerned with what's going on with these two guys because what they're trying to do is open up federal lands to mining to reach energy dominance slash stop this energy emergency that they say that we are in. And before I go into the concerns around that within this region, I just want to note that we are not in an energy emergency. We're actually at an all-time high for oil production. We reached a record in 2023, and we're basically kind of sitting at that since then. We're the highest exporter of natural gas in the world as of today, and half of all the drilling leases in the country are not even being used. And so there really is no reason to open up additional federal protected lands to resource extraction. And I know that this year's theme is a time of change. And so I have this over here in the corner. I say it's a time of change, kinda, because this is like a precedent in since the United States has been created as far as the attempts of mass stripping of protections for public lands. Thus far, almost every single president has continued to protect public lands, and this is like a very large step back against that. However, I only say that it's kind of a time of change because in a colonial country that is the United States, resource extraction and desecration of land is also kind of a part of the foundation of our country. So we'll just go for it with a time of change for now. Um, so what does this mean for the Grand Canyon? Well, one of the things that we're most concerned about is the newly established Bajnuajo-Itakuquen ancestral footprints of the Grand Canyon National Monument. You can see in this picture the darker yellow areas with the lines across them. There's like three of them. Those are all the new national monument. This monument is almost 1 million acres surrounding Grand Canyon National Park. The other colored areas you can see are other protected lands, whether it's a national park, national forest, or tribal nations. And this new monument that was just designated about a year and a half ago essentially continues to protect more land around the Grand Canyon to create a more continuously protected ecosystem per se. And within this monument, there is protection for sacred land, ancestral sites, land, animals, plants, aquifers, etc., primarily from mining. One of the big pushes for this monument was to protect it from mining. So, what's at stake? Should this monument be uh, rescinded? Well, in this picture from the Grand Canyon Trust, you can see all these orange dots, and each orange dot, depending on the side, represents one to multiple uranium mining claims within the national monument. And there are, as you can see, at least down here as of 2008, a total of 8,000 claims. And so there is many mining claims within this monument. However, when the monument was established, it essentially stopped all of those claims from being able to come to life. There is one mine that was grandfathered into the monument, and that was Pinyon Plain Uranium Mine, formerly Canyon Mine. I am sure many of you have heard about it. It's a very contentious mine, as most mines are. And that mine is currently active, but all the rest of these thousands of claims were essentially put to bed, along with a mineral withdrawal that was also put in place in the region. However, they have the ability to both rescind the monument and also take away the mineral withdrawal. It's going to take process to do so, but they can do it. And what that could lead to is potentially hundreds of new uranium mines being opened up, which could lead to poisoned aquifers within the region. So in the Grand Canyon, think about the seeps and springs that flow into the canyon, into the river. All of those could be potentially become literally radioactive, be contaminated with arsenic, lead, uranium, etc. I have this beautiful picture of me from my trip. I was so excited. I was drinking from a seep in the wall. And since being in this position, especially, and understanding the legacy of uranium mining in the region, should this happen within the coming years, something as simple and as joyful as this might become a very dangerous thing to do. Additional uranium mines would also mean more hauling of radioactive material throughout our communities, something that organization that's very familiar to many of you might be Hall know that they work a lot on organizing against the hauling of radioactive materials throughout, especially Navajo Nation. And just a note that we can't clean land or water that's been contaminated with uranium. There are some kind of ways to clean up land, but not really. Once it's been exposed to water and air, it changes and it becomes really toxic to us. And so this is an issue that we have to stop before it happens. Um, Another note that I want to put in here is that these aquifers are also the sole drinking water source for many people, tribal nations, parks, etc. And so, like, once that goes, there's no other option. We don't have a lot of water to mess with in Arizona, as y'all know. And then just a quick update on Pinyon Plain uranium mine, since I know this has been talked about for many years and it's constantly a changing situation. It continues to be an ongoing threat. They have been officially mining and pulling ore out of the mine for a little over the year. If you heard, there was a pause on hauling. The hauling has officially resumed as of about 2 months ago after an agreement was made with the Navajo Nation to be able to haul through through the Navajo Nation. However, no agreement was made with any other affected community. Recently, the EPA conducted a study concluding that the mine has the potential to contaminate the region's groundwater. And this was really interesting because, at least in my experience, that was the first time I saw a federal agency actually uh, agree with or make the claim that this mine does have the potential to contaminate the region's groundwater, despite this being something that the Havasupai have said for decades. Environmental organizations, researchers, etc., have made this claim for decades, but this is the first time I've seen them actually in writing agree to that. So that was exciting, but unfortunately doesn't have a lot of backbone, has not affected the mine in any way. And we'll continue to put pressure on them because our only agreeable solution is a full shutdown of the mine and clean up of the mine. All right, on to our next issue. Our next issue is Snowball Ski Resort, and I know this one might be a little bit more confusing for some of y'all. You might think, well, this isn't the Grand Canyon, and my argument would be, well, it is. This is a very highly interconnected ecosystem, as any ecosystem is, and we know this both through traditional ecological knowledge, Western science, etc. And if you have, so Snowball Ski Resort is located outside of Flagstaff, Arizona, on the San Francisco Peaks. I put that in quote because these are all colonial place names. And if you've never been there before, Flagstaff is located and Snowball is located in this very, very unique ecosystem. If you come into Flagstaff from like anywhere, hours surrounding it, you're driving through the desert, and all of a sudden you come into this very luscious, green, mountainous environment out of nowhere. It is not surprising that this landscape it like plays a huge role in the health of the entirety of the region, and the health of this mountain plays a role into the health of everywhere surrounding it. Um, so this mountain here, and you can see the peaks in this picture, is highly sacred to over 14 tribal nations, and this resort has been contested since inception. And so when I say that this resort is a cultural and environmental crisis, it's because this mountain is culturally a key point to over 14 tribal nations, and the taking care of and defending this mountain is critical for the whole entire region, including the Grand Canyon. So yeah, culturally, this land has been sacred since time immemorial and is deeply embedded into the cultural practices and lifeways of associated tribal nations. Um, it has been contested by nations since its inception in the 30s to 40s. Many tribes have filed lawsuits against them, and the legal system over the decades has continually shown that they are prioritizing profit over indigenous rights and the health of the environment and the community surrounding the ski resort. Environmentally, I'm also going to loop in human health into this one. Environmentally, Snowball has been an issue since its inception, just due to the desecration of land that is needed in order to create it. However, if you've been following along at all of the controversy of Snowball Ski Resort, in the recent decades, they began using reclaimed sewage water to create their artificial snow. And this was kind of the tipping point of like their uh like it couldn't get worse, and then it got even worse. Snowball is a ski resort located in Arizona and is not in a place to functionally run a ski resort during climate change, and they recognize that. And so in order to remedy that, they decided to create a contract with the city of Flagstaff to use reclaimed sewage water to make artificial snow. They were the first ski resort in the entire world to make artificial snow out of 100% reclaimed sewage water. Um, if you can imagine, sewage water is water from our toilets. And so it's very high in nutrients in the same way that if you are a farmer, you would use manure to like fertilize the soil. So it's extremely high in nutrients, but it's also very high in hormones, pharmaceuticals, hormone disruptors, and viruses that would also be in our waste. Um, And when you are spraying millions and millions of gallons of this water onto a landscape, you completely change the landscape. You change the microbiology of the soil, you change the soil structure, which changes the plants, which changes the animals, which changes the bugs. I mean, you create a completely different environment. And this is a mountain that, again, is very unique into the surrounding areas. And so it holds endemic species, it holds sacred species. It's been everything that lives there has like learned over since time immemorial how to exist on this high elevation, high desert ecosystem. And now Snowball is creating a completely different ecosystem that is high in water and high in nutrients. And what that does is it creates space for invasive species to come in that takes over these endangered and threatened species space. And this is a problem ecologically because it's invasive species, but also because they aren't spraying this water all winter. They so in the summer, these invasive species that have now created a home, they dry up. And now we have also created a less fire resilient landscape. It's like a tinderbox up there. And we have seen in many places throughout the world, in many different contexts, the way that reclaimed wastewater absolutely desecrates landscapes. And we are in the relatively early stages of this right now. We're only a little over a decade into using this water. And so it is imperative that we stop it as soon as possible before we get to the point where where something really awful happens, like we lose the sacred medicine species, the entire mountain catches on fire, etc. And then environmentally as well, like I mentioned before, like it takes a lot of desecration of the land to create a place like this, to put in all the parking lots, to put in all the ski lifts, runs, etc. Um, and also causes a lot of trash in the landscape as well. And then I just briefly want to show this. This is their current existing development at Snowball Ski Resort. And then the lower one is their master development plan that they are intending to pursue. And without even looking that intently, you can see that they are looking to develop and expand a lot more. They're trying to put in more ski lifts, more snowmaking, more parking, which has historically been their only way to prevent like to they sell tickets infinitely. They don't like have a set number of people. And then they're also trying to expand upon summer activities and become like this four-season resort with like an outdoor concert and festival venue, a alpine roller coaster, etc. Um, okay. After having literally the world's fastest overview of those two issues, now we can kind of talk about the hope and the opportunities. And working in the environmental organizing space, there's very classic actions that you can pursue, whether it's putting pressure on your city representatives, etc., organizing rallies and protests, educating each other, writing op-eds for the papers, putting or not putting your money where your mouth is, wink, wink, creating art, etc. There are so many ways to get engaged. However, I think speaking to the folks that are going to be listening to this video, I know that a lot of the folks here are probably here because they had a life-changing trip within the Grand Canyon and fell in love and decided to commit a big chunk of not their entire life to this place. And so I think that you have a really unique opportunity to help people to fall in love with this place. And then from there, they can navigate what that responsibility means to them. So that's what I'm going to leave you with today is helping people fall in love with this place, taking your job seriously. Like this is a really big deal to be given this really unique opportunity. And with that love, people will make their own change. All right. If you would like to stay updated with the work that we're doing with the Sierra Club, you can follow us on Protect Grand Canyon on social media. If you want to get in contact with me, here is my contact information. I also have our website listed. And if you're interested in the work that we're doing, we also started a podcast, Land Defenders. You can find it on all platforms and online for free. Check it out. And yeah. Thank you. That's all.